Yes, thank you, Andy. So for those of you who were on a couple weeks ago, I had started recording and then I paused it and then forgot. So this time I didn't even like, I took myself out of the equation and we're just automatically recording. I'm not going to touch it, I swear. So I think with that all said, we will get started. I know we have quite a few more people planning to come in, so I will try to keep an eye on that for folks coming in to kind of let them in. So but we definitely don't want to. We want to be respectful of everybody's time, and so really appreciate everybody coming in and having this conversation tonight. It's gonna. I think we're gonna have a mixture of some folks that saw this last time, and then also some new folks. So I will try to kind of keep it more generalized, so that people can. So that it's applicable for everybody. And turn off my phone because it never stops, right? Tonight we're going to talk about turning your FSM unit, your Microsport specifically, into a pulsed electromagnetic field generating device. So this is actually exciting, and Wellness PEMF has been doing this. They've been working with these devices, creating these devices for a number of years now, small handful. And so it kind of has gotten to the point where I felt like this was valuable enough and people want it. So that was the big thing that drives. I mean, we are always trying to be out there getting the best bioenergetic technology available, but also to kind of make sure that it's at a high quality and then creates real value for folks. So this is a company that I've known for a number of years, and they're good people. And I'm not really sure what I did to my slide there and how I even did that, but that's okay. So we're gonna. So for those of you who might not know, I actually teach. Apparently, I have this screen. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I teach this quantum principles of modalities in our local university and also for Michigan Association of Chiropractors. Even though I'm a physical therapist, I teach regularly for the MAC and doing CEU'd and then courses within an integrative medicine program. So this is something I've actually been talking about working in for a number of years, believe it or not. And I'm actually very excited to finally have a device that does bring in that pulse electromagnetic field component because I've wanted it for a very long time. So disclosure statement, those are obviously How Resonance Technologies is my device company. This is my clinic, Cranial Sacral Institute. How Health and Wellness is more intellectual property. I work with Msrp because our devices are based on Msrp, and then obviously the Microcurrent conference, which many of you guys know that. So I've been teaching in this realm for over 7 years. I think it's probably actually quite a bit more than that. I began working as an injury consultant after I began teaching for frequency-specific microcurrent. That kind of created a demand for my knowledge and expertise in that area. And really, the device came from Microsport, came from really a need for my programs in a reliable, easy to use device. And that's how Microsport became birthed, because those of you who know me, you know I love to work with people and I love people and helping people. And so this is just another way of doing that. So after I taught for frequency specific microcurrent, most of you know this, but some might. I taught for a company called NES, which it has a pulse electromagnetic field device called the My Health device. And I know that some of the folks that are on here actually own My Health devices. It's very powerful. It's a powerful PEMF device. It was launched, oh my gosh, probably the better part of 12 years ago. But the device has had some issues. There's some durability issues. There's some issues with actually it being a little bit too powerful at times. I have a biomat because I kept over treating people with it. And so the biomat was actually there to physically ground folks after we might have over treated them with a My Health device. So we actually very quickly in my clinic realized that this was something very powerful and that it had a lot of benefit, but also that it had to kind of rein it in and it had to be done in the right way. So I actually wanted Microsport to be both a PEMF and a micro at the same time at that point. But the device developers just were not quite there yet. And so Microsport was launched as just a microcurrent, because that was the most solid technology that we had at the time to get those programs and that healing out to people. Mm. And so for me on my personal journey, a lot of people know kind of the story. I was introduced to frequency specific microcurrent. I was actually met Dr. Carol McMakin at a um, Upledger Craniosacral Beyond the Dura, which is an international event. Some people might not know that. And so she was actually there presenting her initial research for treatment of cervical trauma fibro. And I was very intrigued. I was very interested. I met her, really liked what her message was. I took the first class that I could, which was about 4 or 5 months from then, and brought it into my clinic, which at that point we had been really just open for about a year. And that would have been about 17 years ago. So we never looked back. We had a chronic pain population at the time, and FSM was really a big solution for a lot of our patients. As a lot of you know, I started teaching that. Then I became a teacher for NES, and that brought me into the magnetic realm. And then I also have the annual Microcurrent conference. So areas of technology that I use that use resonance, there's a reason that HoweRT is called How Resonance Technologies. And that was very intentional because it would have been easy for us to just call it Microsport Company. But we really had this vision of down the road, our company would be more about bringing in new, safe, effective technologies that are resonance based. And so those of you who have heard me lecture for a very long time have heard me say that if you can, it's not just about doing the technology with frequencies. It's about the right frequencies and optimizing, and the right frequencies with the right modality. And whoever kind of does that, like, so you get the best one for micro, and you get the best one for magnet, and you get the best one for light. If we were to combine all those together, I truly believe that we would have Star Trek. So so in Star Trek, they wave the little wand and they heal. But I do actually think that that is really versions of that are truly attainable, I believe, in our lifetime. And if not in our lifetime, then hopefully my kids' lifetime, right? So I want to touch on all of these kinds of things and kind of what I've learned. Truth be told, we have been combining these technologies in my practice for a very long time, the better part of a decade, especially with using the My Health device. Let's talk about energy in the human body field. So it's really when you start talking about putting bioenergetic technologies together, it's most ideal if we can think about how the body uses those kinds of energies. And they use them in different ways. So current will, and we'll talking about this a little bit more in depth, but current in general, it increases electron production, ATP. So that's inside of the cells, it increases that cellular ATP, and increases that energy. Light increases by photon production. So that's true for laser or LED, but it's again working in this quantum field, but it's also doing it in a different way than current. And magnet is a very intriguing thing because it appears that the energy is more of a direct transfer. So instead of like going in through the nerves and then getting into the cells and producing ATP through the mitochondria, it appears that magnets are kind of a direct energy transfer, which means that it's more outside of the cell, in between the cells, in between what we call the matrix. And this actually has some really good potential when it comes to healing and how to use it therapeutically. So these are all what we call modality effects. So what I mean by all of these things, electron production, proton production, magnet energy transfer, are things that are inherent to that type of modality. So you get electron production with any type of microcurrent device, and you get protons with any light, right? So those are, now keep in mind that all of this thought process is still theoretical. We don't have research that says this is exactly what happens. But we do have research that's close. So we actually think that this is pretty sound science here. We're not just kind of making this stuff up. So let's talk about that difference between modality effect, those things that are physiological to the modality, and then also the quantum resonance effect, which is what we all love so much, right? The frequencies and how those work, and how they all come together and make such wonderful change. So let's talk some science basics. So modality effect is the physical response of a modality that I just talked about. So with electrons, protons, energy flow, like devices produce like response. So a light that is a certain kind of LED is going to do a similar kind of energy transfer than another type of LED. And those are inherent to that device. So microcurrent devices are, you're going to get, even if you have different brands, you're still going to have a similar kind of electron flow. Resonance effect is what we all love. It's very near and dear to our hearts, right? And that is that physiological response to the frequencies, to the quantum component. So in current and in PEMF, it's called frequency. In light, it's called waveform. But for me, I just like to kind of think of them still as frequencies because it actually is very similar. Those are very technical parameters. And a lot of technologies that are out there really didn't change those or play around with how to optimize those use. But they actually do. They are out there. I had a wonderful conversation just a couple of days ago with a physician assistant here locally, and her husband is a urologist, and she said, well, he just doesn't get this whole frequency thing, and he thinks it's like, he thinks it's too like crazy out there. And I said, huh, that's really interesting, because when they do lithotripsy, are they just using any frequency for those sound waves, or is it specific frequencies that make the stones burst apart? And we both laughed because we know the answer. You can't just put any sound therapy over the kidney and have the kidney stones fall apart, right? It takes a specific frequency. So even mainstream medicine is using this stuff. They don't always realize that that's what they're really doing, right? Because they think of it as a very mainstream thing. So she and I got a good laugh out of that. So how the modality gets into the body. So this is one of the things that is really, really appealing about magnet technology, is this mode of entry, the ease of entry, and then we're also going to talk about how to optimize these, and how to bring them all together to get your best results. So current effects. So let's talk about what the modality effect is with currents a little bit deeper. So what we do know by research, Chang had showed us that there is an increased cellular ATP, that is the energy that your cell produces, by 500% with basic microcurrent. Now those microcurrents were not like FSM type devices or anything fancy. Those were really just the basic microcurrent devices that they had back in 1982. But these actually apply to all microcurrent. So we know that all microcurrent increases that cellular energy. It appears to be intracellular. It looks like it actually enters into the cell. Mitochondria works. And again, this is theoretical. If you have had the opportunity, which I have, of treating somebody with a diagnosed mitochondrial dysfunction, you kind of know that you go in carefully with microcurrent because you're not really sure. So far, I will tell you, I've had probably about, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them in my practice, which is probably a lot. So that is a lot. It's not a very common thing. And so far, they've all tolerated, which also kind of says, okay, well, is it because the body's just very good at using that, or is there actually another mechanism happening? All those things are things that we still have to ask. So these are all different waveforms that you can see. And I like this picture. I use it in my lectures for my college students, just because I want people to see that a wave is not a wave is not a wave. And I just had this conversation with an esthetician the other day. And so sometimes different frequencies apply because you're using a different waveform. This is the waveform. For those of you who do not know, this is the waveform right here with this square. Can you guys see my arrow when I'm on there? Good. Okay. So this is the square waveform that we use in the Microsport devices. This is much closer to the My Health for those of you who have My Health devices. So, how does FSM get actually into the physical body? So, any of you who've had treatments or were running treatments, you know that it's all about the water, right? You drink your water ahead of time, and that is because the it is really important to get the water from the device through your skin and your tissues, right? So whether there's adipose fascia, all those kinds of things, all those good things. And so it's important to get those through the tissues and into the system. Let me just make sure that there's nobody waiting to get in. Yep, there is not. Okay. So once in the system, the nerves carry the current very effectively. I think this is why, I know this is why we have so many of the setups from the spine, like the upper neck, to wherever. So whether it's the neck to the arm, so that you're really hitting that whole nerve root. I do believe it's part of the reason that frequency specific microcurrent and other types of resonance based microcurrent devices work so well, because the body sees it as self, right? So it's current really at a very similar current level that your nerves normally run at. And so it actually seems very natural. And those of us who have had the treatments know that it does. It feels like it's working with your system, not against. It does, however, obviously require direct connection, either through a towel or pads or a resonance strip or something like that. Now, I will say I am eternally grateful to Ning for creating the piggyback wires, right? So, because having one pad on each wire is much nicer than two, right? So, they have tried to make that as easy as they can, but you still have to have that physical connection. So yeah, we know that. And some people don't mind the wet towels. Some people, I have some patients who like the wet towels. I don't get that. But so the goal with the Microsport was actually to provide a superior, my goal was we optimized programming for resonance-based microcurrent devices. So that was really, and I put the slide in here because I want people to understand that our goal is really, maybe it's a little lofty or whatever, but it's not about just having good microcurrent. It's about trying to have things as close to optimized as possible, which is why we're considering why we brought in this PEMF component, because if we can get things even better, right? We're always looking for that. How can we make things even better for people, and easier as part of that? So let's look at magnets. So I love these pictures because it really kind of brings you in the three-dimensional component of magnetic fields. And so when you actually have like a magnetic disc like this, it's emitting a field. These are about a foot in diameter. So it's just a big bubble, right? A big bubble of healing. And I like these pictures because it kind of really hones in and shows you that whole three-dimensional aspect of how magnets work. And this one is actually one of my favorite ones because this is actually a magnetic field generated by a cell. And it just kind of brings it back home that magnetic fields are around us all the time. And so even with our microcurrent based devices, we are generating somewhat of a magnetic field just with this, because anytime you have energy flow, you're going to have that magnetic field that is generated. So it does make sense that there is a good potential for healing and to optimize healing when you start bringing these things together. And I want to say that because it really is more about, it's not either or, it really is about having it all together, right? So let's talk a little bit about the modality effect. So the modality effect is really less understood with regards to magnets. PEMF really started coming on the scene. The My Health was one of the first ones on the U.S. market, and that was probably 12 years ago. I'm going to guess. And maybe Andy remembers more, but it was quite a while ago. And so, in the big scheme of technologies, microcurrent's been around since the 1950s, really more in a organized fashion, and less organized even way farther back, right? But we don't really know as much about how the magnet interfaces with our tissues. What we do seem to feel, and a lot of this is clinically based, is that it appears to be fascia based, which is that connective tissue that is underneath the skin, but over the muscles, and it kind of goes through as a connective web throughout your entire system. This being said, that is extracellular, right? So it's not within the cells. And I do think that this is part of how and why the magnet works so well in different ways. So it probably does not require the mitochondria, because we haven't seen anything about where how that actually interfaces and gets into the cell. It does not appear to do that. Now, one thing that is interesting is that in a lot of my work, there are actually frequency receptors, and those are receptors within your body that kind of have they're like little antennas that are constantly out there looking for frequencies, and those frequency receptors are actually on the outside of cells. So I do think that there is maybe a potential that frequencies in a magnet field might interface more consistently with those receptors because they are carried more in that fascial matrix in between the cells. So that's really just kind of Vanessa's own theory, but it's based on some pretty solid science. And and it really kind of it kind of gives credence to what I feel when I work with people in different fashions using magnets versus the microcurrent. So the other thing to think about is I had mentioned, don't drop your things on the floor, is that it does appear that magnet energy is a more direct interface, like that you don't have to use the cells, you don't have to, your body doesn't have to work as well. And who can benefit from free energy? Well, first of all of us, but probably most our older population. And that's one of the things that I is really appealing about the magnet technology to me, because we all have those older patients who won't drink the water to make microcurrent really be most effective. And so I think that this is a great add-on for some of that population that is not going to drink the water, or they're chronically dehydrated because of urinary issues or whatever. So that is a great population for this, and they do really like it. So how does it get into the body? So as far as physical hookups, this is actually one of the things that people say they like the most about PEMF. No pads, no towels. You just have to be in the field. Now, working and playing with this, I've been using these devices since October after the conference. Marcus kind of said, "Hey, Vanessa, you really got to try these," and I felt like they were at a point where I was really ready to jump in. And so I have found that the closer, obviously all magnets are more powerful the closer they are to you. But I have noticed a big difference in when I have them right next to my skin. They don't have to be literally underneath my clothes, but right in that area. So is the water important? Of course. I mean, water is always important for a healthy state, right? So water is life. And so it is important, but it's not as critical for getting the message and the energy into the tissues. So that part is good. It is still important because you still need the water on board for toxins, and those people who work physically in the fascial world, like me or myofascial practitioners or massage therapists or trigger point therapists, those toxins tend to lie very heavily in the fascia field. So that as energy starts moving in there, you're going to have a detox. I haven't seen a significantly higher amount of detox with the magnets as opposed to current. I think personally it's about the same. But it is something to think about. So less precision needed for the setups. And one of the things I was just talking to Marcus tonight was, yes, you can run just one. So you don't have to. This actually comes with two paddles, right? And so you can run like one on each shoulder, one across. But these are actually quite powerful. We'll talk about the amount of Gauss and energy coming off of them in a few slides. but you don't have to run two. You can run just one. So that actually makes it even easier because you're really just keeping it in the general area, right? So it's very easy to sleep with it. So it is the kind of thing you can just slide it right underneath the sheet. And just I have found that it is more effective if I put it pretty close to where I'm at, so that I'm in more in the 4 to 6 inch range than if I have it farther away. So that is definitely one. So one fun story, and I know there's a couple people that were on the last one. This is new because this is just this week. So I will share my personal story. And there are certain things that I have found that I actually felt pretty frustrated with the PEMF with. I did try it for when I had a flare of my shingles in my eye, and I felt like it was really not effective enough for me to use it. It was about a third as effective as if I ran my program just without it, or with the regular sticky pads. But I did have a fun story the other day. So those of you who are on here that know me personally know that my fiance has been on a quest to build a new gym in our basement. So I have been laying flooring, which is just a wonderful thing for someone who's almost 52, right? So the other day I actually got back from work and I was pretty sore. I am not gonna lie, I've got a bad disc. If any of you wonder why the spine disc injury program works so well, is because of my foolishness of a lifting, reaching too heavy, and caused a significant disc injury to myself. Probably, I don't know, it's probably 7 years ago now. So it'll act up every once in a while when I do foolish things like lay flooring across the entire basement. And I had to make dinner, so I really just needed to kind of do this and up and around. So I didn't want to be hooked up, and I thought, you know what, I am going to just put on the PEMF device. I used my spine disc injury, which all of you guys who have our units love that program, I'm sure. And normally, if with the amount of pain that I have, I know it probably would have taken about 35 minutes for that to break that pain cycle. And I was shocked that in about 15, 20 minutes, it was gone. It was completely gone. So I was like, okay, this is like, and so I knew theoretically, I knew there had to be certain things that would work better with the magnets. And maybe it's also a personal thing, it's maybe it's those things where you need more energy, which I'm sure that if you asked my L3 disc if it needed more energy, it would tell you definitely yes. So I'm still kind of playing around, and we'll certainly learn those things together. But for me, that was incredibly exciting, especially because discogenic pain is it's such a common issue. Magnet-based technologies are their PEMF. One of the early things that was used for are things like bone stimulators, and so it does have good potential for tissue regeneration. So now that said, it would be interesting. I have not tried this yet, but now that I think about it, the regenerative med programs for PRP stem cell treatments would be very fascinating to try with PEMF. Because those are so frequency based. So that would be pretty interesting. If anybody does that, please share with us the results. So PEMF, it creates that bubble around there. One of the things that's fascinating about PEMF technology is the different physics. So when you're running a line of current, that current comes through the wire and then it goes through your nervous system through that line, right? And so the frequency is just the numbers of up and down that the current goes. Magnets have a really different physics, so it creates that bubble around, and it's literally like this etherical bubble of frequencies. And so with current, the frequency is however many times that current goes up and down. So as you have one line of current, you have one frequency at any one time. Magnets are not held to that to that physics. So you can embed multiple frequencies in that bubble simultaneously. So what that does is it gives us a lot of potential. So now that type of technology is not integrated into this version, but as I go through and develop new things, that's actually where I want to kind of take the technology in a different way. So it's very exciting to me to do that. So for those of you who have not yet seen the label is in. I actually was when I first started talking to Marcus about offering this to our clients and practitioners. I was kind of concerned because I didn't know if we would have time, and unfortunately, their shipping delay has given us time so that all of your units, there are some of you I know that have already ordered them, will come with a nice label. Because you guys know how I am about aesthetics, right? So it's got to work and it's got to work great, but it should be beautiful, right? So yeah, so I'll do that, and just I'll say it right here. So we are expected to have our unit shipped to us on Friday, which means that we should get them into our Rochester Hills, our Brighton, Michigan location probably Monday, and we will turn those around. For those of you who are already ordered, we'll have those shipped probably within one business day. So we'll turn around and get them right out to you guys. So pretty excited for all of that. So I hope you guys like them. I think some of you have already told me you do, so it's good. I think they're beautiful. So what about detox? So let's talk about this detox thing. So actually, why did I put that? So I think I kind of already covered this. I just put that as a reminder. You can still detox with this, with the PEMF. So don't think that it's going to be an either or that it's going to be less. I haven't seen any increased, and that's probably the biggest thing right there, right? So so the biggest thing that people talk about with pulsed electromagnetic field is Gauss. Gauss is the amount of power energy that is emitted by the PEMF device. And PEMF just stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Field. So what that means is it's a magnet generated device. Instead of being what's called a static magnet, the static magnet is just that magnet, like you take two magnets and you put them next to each other and they're little discs or squares or whatever. Those are static magnets. These are a magnetic field that are actually generated by electrical components, right? So so that's the definition of a Gauss there. And really, this is just to kind of show you and give you an idea of where our technology is falling compared to other technologies that are out there. So Beamer is probably the most known pulsed electromagnetic field device. I actually had the privilege of trying one of the first Beamer units that ever came to the U.S. From Europe, and it was many years ago. I'm embarrassed to say, but yeah, and they're good people and they have a good intention. The cost is super high, and Beamers their specialty is circulation, and that is great. Circulation is great. The practitioners I see that are most happy with Beamers are ones that are working in eye care, where they're actually working on that microcirculatory component of the eyes. Because they totally lose me on the cost, right? So $6,000. That's an MLM, which I'll just say it right now. I can't stand MLMs, but because there's so much extra cost built into that, and that's why we don't have that, because we are very focused on helping support practitioners in a cost-effective way to get cost-effective devices as well. So Beamer is at a Gauss of 0.335, which would be 35 Tesla. Is one of the ways they look at it. So just to kind of give you an idea of where that Beamer is. So our wellness converter is at 0.83. So it's over twice as powerful as a Beamer. So so that kind of, when I actually saw that, I was like, wow, because the power behind magnets, especially when we're around a lot of energy, our systems are pretty equipped at moving energy. I have to be honest, I don't really feel these fields, right? So these are pretty powerful magnetic converter, and it's just, to me, it's just like being around. Not everybody is that way. I had an office manager who also had cord inflammation. And I see a correlation there with people who can't move energy or people with cord inflammation don't seem to be able to move energy through their system. And so she could never be around heavy PEMF devices. It would actually give her headaches. It would make her feel woozy. And that is something that I have seen with high end. I have not had any adverse adverse reactions. I can honestly say this with the wellness converters, which is encouraging. I have seen clients have adverse reactions to beamers, which is interesting, and not these. So there are ones that are a little bit higher. If you go into like IMRS, a good friend of mine has one of these. They'll actually go up to 45 gauss, which is incredibly powerful, right? OMI, which is much higher, 2.2 to 6.0. I have an OMI mat at my clinic, and I honestly, I have not seen the same kind of results with OMI as we have with the wellness converter. We've been using more. The OMI kind of just sits on a table, which is kind of sad. It makes a nice white base for my pictures. If you'll notice, my pictures of my converter are actually on my OMI mat. So that's probably. So in summary, I want people to understand this. This is actually pretty critical. My thought is microcurrent increases the cellular ATP through electrons, right? So the energy is going into the cells, activating 5 times, like 500%, right? And it increases that cellular energy via electrons. Also, electromagnetic field increases the energy in the matrix, and lasers increase it in the photons. So the critical key is the frequency and the resonance effect, right? So it's what frequencies are running with those. And so where I want to go down, in the future is where we really optimize all of these things and we get the best frequent or wavelengths for light, and we get the best frequencies for PEMF. Now, what I don't always think that the FSM frequencies are the optimal for PEMF, but I also know that, as long as you're getting results, we're moving ahead in the right direction, right? And that's really where we want to be. And so it is, it's like, why do we use this in the clinic? If it's not optimal, because it's the best that we have right now, right? So, and we keep striving and we keep developing. And those of you who know me personally will be like, yep, she will. She won't be happy until she's, until I make a tricorder, right? So, but that'd be great. But okay, so whoops, what is it? So when to use what? So truth be told, we've actually been using combinations of microcurrent FSM type stuff, PEMF, and then also some light-based therapies for the better part of a decade. I've been doing this stuff with high-level athletes for a very long time. I've been making recommendations even to other practices for over a decade on, put them on a beamer. A lot of the NFL teams have beamers now. Put them on a beamer, run your microcurrent device, and do some laser. And that's a very standard thing that I would actually consult and recommend for high level athletes. And I can tell you that it works amazingly well. What I can say is that a lot of times, I'll be quite honest, it's the frequency specific microcurrent, the FSM, HoweRT microspore devices that are bringing it all together. So I kind of want to reiterate that as well. The nice thing is that with this setup, the way that wellness has done this, it's not like they're trying to create a box that replaces your microsport. It just needs your regular sport to run. So, but truth be told, we've run, and it was funny, Marcus just said this. He goes, oh my gosh, we just did this where we run we run the microcurrent and the current, and then we run the PEMF, and it's amazing, Vanessa, amazing. And I'm like, yeah, Marcus, I've been doing it for years. So, but I will tell you that I have been very impressed with the results using the wellness PEMF and the microsport together. So I'm running, I typically run the microsport program with a program like say muscle strain, and I'll run the same program through the PEMF converter at the same time. And so they're getting the same signal, the same resonance component, but in different ways. And it works really, really very well. So I'll tell a story about that in a little bit. So the current strengths are, the magnet strengths are about the fascia. The current strength is, I think, really, is the way that the current activates. Currents work really well for nerves. And so I think of magnets more for fascia and muscles. That's kind of broad, but I think that that's a good place to start. Weaknesses for current, the setup is obviously, I mean, have to be honest, right? We try to make the devices really nice and convenient. You can put them in a pocket, but the wires get broken. It gets to be a pain. Some people won't wear it at night. It's not fast. I do think we have a lot of potential to shorten things up when we're using micro and current in combination. Magnet weaknesses, we're just not as refined on the frequencies yet, I think is the biggest weakness when it comes to magnets. Let me see. Okay, so these are just some lovely teams that we work with. I think, I don't know, I think we're missing a couple here, but it's growing a lot. So combining goals. So this is actually and I apologize for people who are on this again. They have to hear the story again. But this is a great story about how this stuff takes things to the next level when you do it together. So this athlete came to me. He's kind of near and dear to me. I've worked with him since he was in middle school. He's now a senior in high school, and he's a local athlete who's he was a starting quarterback as a freshman at a school that's a feeder school for the Big Ten. So he's good, right? So he had really looking ahead, he had probably a great Division One, Big Ten, collegiate type of career ahead of him. He's had injury after injury after injury. I've gotten to know him quite well. He's a nice kid. I think the last I told him is like, just go to college. Like, you don't have to do sports. He's like, I'm right there. So his latest one was he came with this leg pain. And he was showing me this area just below his knee on the outside. And I said, okay, what do you think you did to it? And he said, well, I think I literally tore the bone away from my knee, meaning the head of the fibula, right? Tore it away from my leg. And I said, wow, that's a big trauma. I don't think you really probably did that. That would take like a massive, like, did you have a big pile up or a horrible hit? Nope. I said, yeah, probably not that. Well, after about 3 treatments, we'd get his pain down with microcurrent, and he'd leave. It would be okay. It would be better, right? He'd come back, and he's coming about every other day. When he's doing this, he's pretty serious about it. And by about the third time I saw him, which was probably about the 4th day, he was still getting worse. It was swollen now all over the whole bottom of the leg. He was losing nerve function in his foot, like motor function. So his foot no longer worked. And I told him, I said, you just bought yourself a nerve test and an MRI. So back to your ortho you go. And so mom called me literally like the next day and said, yeah, he absolutely did do that. He pulled the fibular head away from his leg, tore all the ligaments and muscles around the top of it, created a huge hematoma the entire length of his outside of his foot. And yes, his nerve conduction test said that he had motor loss, and that they of course they were saying it was going to be permanent, right? So because that's what they think, right? So this was when this must have been in October, because I had just gotten the unit from Marcus. And I said, listen, I have this new technology. I will gift you 6 sessions. My goal is to bring this back in 6 sessions. And this is how we're going to do this. So the first 3 sessions, we're just going to focus on repairing the hematoma and the tissues around the dislocation. And then the next 3, we're going to try to repair the nerve. So using what we call the Trifecta Treatment. So we're using a microcurrent device. We're using a PEMF device, a wellness converter with a similar program. And then we're also using DPL, our red LED lights. So they run about $150 for a little, I actually forgot on this time, but a little strip of LEDs. And they're at a frequency for pain. After the 3rd treatment, he actually came to me. Now, remember, we were just running frequencies. I think we were doing high ankle sprain because it has ligaments and all of the stuff in there. It's about an hour and a half, if I'm remembering correctly. And then we ran hematoma bruise on the PEMF device. and with the light. And so by the third treatment, he came to me and he said, "Look, my foot is coming back." So he went to go do dorsiflexion, and it was about it was, I don't know, it was like probably 75%, which is good, but I'm like, well, that's not back, right? It's better. But that's not totally back. So, but what was encouraging is we had not even yet started treating the nerve. So by the fifth treatment, he was back practicing with his team. And by the sixth treatment, which this was all within 2 weeks, he was back playing in the game. So everything is normalized. The nerve came back 100% perfectly. He did another set of three of the sessions, but he did not do them right away. He did them after games to kind of make sure that he was on track. And I believe he did not need anything after those. So his total treatment time, his return was after 6 sessions, really 5. And then his return, his resolution was really within, it would have been 9 treatments. Not bad, huh? For something that was where he was told it would be, he would have that for the rest of his life. So yeah, so those of you are, we are offering, so I got off track. I get so into that story, I just wanted to keep telling it. So for you guys, we are doing our pre-orders by the end of this week. We are going to place the order on Thursday. So that's when. I know a lot of you guys are on here have already ordered them. This will be like our converter special. For those of you who are practitioners, if you decide to do a micro sport, so you're like, hey, I love this idea, Vanessa, but now you've just told me I need to have 2 microsports to run at the same time, and you're making me crazy. So what we are offering is, if you decide to do that, you can also get it at volume 20 pricing, which is our lowest price. So just reference either our price list or contact me. It's only valid for our participants in these lectures. We are actually offering, this was a good question that one of our practitioners had, is, are you offering the price for both patients and the practitioners? And the answer for right now is yes. Once we actually get past this original promo, which will be in just a couple of days, the normal pricing will apply. And the MSRP for these devices is going to be somewhere between $2,200 and $2,400, depending on what the practitioners feel. And so the pricing will be, there'll be a lower price for the practitioners to purchase at, and volume 20 people will always get the best price. So those of you who are at volume 20 already, you can expect to see the $17.95 price long term, because we love you guys, right? So, and you're getting to be quite the crowd. So that said, I also have to tell you guys, I don't know if this is fixed yet, but we've had a snafu with our website as well as our email. So if you have tried to reach us in the last day and a half, our apologies. We are actually, it ended up being a domain transfer issue or a domain renewal that our company did not do. So it is supposed to be being resolved tonight. So if for some reason you do not catch us, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this right now. I'm going to add this for you guys. So I'm going to give you my clinic email as well. That is not tied to the same domain. And that is director@csiofmi.com. And so you guys, I'll leave that up there. So that one is good. And you can also give us a call. So please note that normally this is a system that normally works phenomenally. So if you leave a voicemail on HoweRT, it gets converted into an email and sent to me. And that way, if it's after hours or on a weekend or on a holiday, I still get to see that you called. But the problem is that is reliant on email. So it actually should, I expected that it would be resolved by this evening. I don't see it resolved yet. So I know that I know what it is now. The tech team's going to have to go through and do another level of stuff. So it should be up and going by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. But if you also use that directorate, you can reach us. If you call us on the phone, we'll be there. And we're, you know, as I hope you guys all know, we are definitely always here for you. I do have a question. Looks like, please share email. Thanks. Is that the right one, Marnie? Is that okay? So, oops, I think that's yeah. So that's that's the best one to do. I also can send out an email. Apparently, just so you know, my emails go out. They just don't come in. so so I actually, because we had a shipment today, and I had made sure to tell the practice. I said, just make sure that the patient gets their getting started email. So so with that, do we have any questions? Really, none at all? I'm trying to think how many people were here last time. Probably about half of you. So I know some of you guys already have your orders in, so I'm excited for you guys to be getting them. I can't wait to hear about some of it. Oh, I see up here.
Vanessa,
Yes.
it's Ellen.
Hi, Ellen. How are you?
Problem of the week here. No, not really. Phil, we went to the orthopedic surgeon today, and they took an X-ray, and on his hip he has bone on bone with calcification getting out, or it's getting a little thing there saying you're not taking care of me, and I'm a hip that doesn't want to be treated badly.
No hip wants to be treated badly, Ellen.
Magnet help. I mean, besides, we're down for hip replacement with him.
Okay. So yeah, and I'm not surprised that they're talking hip replacement. You know, we have a number of people who use their microsports and get by with doing just the microcurrent for a long time. It doesn't always completely replace having to get that replacement.
Right.
It depends. And hips are, I will say hips are harder. So what I would say is for sure on the microsport is to make sure that you're also running that arthritis joint stiffness program,
Okay.
because that will help it. Because sometimes what happens when you're bone on bone like that and you have those calcifications in there,
Yeah.
those calcifications are one of the things kind of feeding into that inflammatory process. So sometimes running that arthritis joint stiffness program will help kind of take down some of that arthritic sandpaper that's kind of in there. So that's kind of what I would do. As far as if it would work better or not, it would be worth a shot. Ellen, are you in the area by the clinic, or are you guys down south still?
We're in Florida. Yeah,
Okay.
We're here with masks being supposed to be not allowed, people not having to wear them starting tomorrow or the next day, possibly in Sarasota.
Oh,
We'll
you
see.
lucky. You lucky dogs.
A lot of restaurants we go to don't require them, which is nice in other places, but
Don't tease me like that, girl.
It's a bone spur is what it is. That's what he said,
So if it's an actual bone spur, I would use the bone spur program. It's either just the day program is probably adequate. Use that once a day. And you can I was just going to say, you can email me and I'll send you some specifics, but don't do it for about a half a day.
Okay. Yeah. The surgery is this guy is like the third one in the country as being popular. And so it's like 8 to 10 weeks out yet. And he's in a lot of discomfort.
Well, I think so. We'll connect, Ellen, because we want that. Even if you need to do surgery, you want it to be as healthy as possible when you go through.
Right.
And so there's a lot of value to that because it gives those surgeons really clean surfaces. And we do that a lot for people. And then, and I don't know how many people here know, I mean, you really should be able to get through surgery with very little to no pain medication. It's just PO1, and there is that post-op and post-injury instruction sheet.
Yep, I always use them and they always work. They're excellent.
Good. I try. So I want to I'm sorry, are you done, Ellen?
I'm all done. We will
Okay,
get in touch with you once we get closer
okay,
to that, but I was planning to do that anyway, just
good.
because I want to have your expertise on that part, getting us
Okay.
to that other
Sound,
part. So,
you know I'm here. It's good to hear from you. I haven't seen you in a long time. So,
yeah.
Marty, I want to make sure I get to your questions here. So, do I think that 5G networks are impeding the efficacy of your machines and magnets? So, I think, I personally think that high level fields like the 5G are probably not healthy for us. Whether or not they impede, I don't think they impede the efficacy of our machines or magnets in general, because I think it's a proximity thing. So these are so intense, and there's, especially if you have it close to your body, you have to remember it's creating a healthy physiological field in this area. So if I have it here, it's creating a healthy field right through this area and in my field. So what that's going to do is it's going to offset, it's not coming in, those that 5G is not coming in at at 0.38 Gauss for sure. You'd have to be like really on top of it. So I do think it is important for us to be trying to reset our bodies and our energy fields bioenergetically, because we are being insulted in so many different ways. We don't know. I mean, we can't say this for sure. It's all just, I think I can say I think this, but the reality is we're just a bunch of guinea pigs, right? So we don't really know what these effects are going to be of the 5G and how much they can keep, energizing our stratosphere. So, are your apps on Android, iPhone going to include magnet tutorials? I'm not sure that they'll have magnet tutorials. I actually have thought through that. I think where we want to try to go, and I'm open to feedback on this, is to do more webinars. So our goal for 2021 is to get on board with more webinars and create a library of webinars. Come spring to summer, our expectation is that our website is going to be taken to a whole nother level, where we will have a login area, and we'll have a whole library of different webinars and instructional videos that you can just go in and check out. Can magnets in the equipment reset energy fatigue from 5G exposure? I think that all bioenergetic technologies can help reset the energy field. Yes, I do. I think that's part of why this is important. But I also think, I think that all of them, current, light, magnet, sound, all have the potential. If you want my gosh darn honest opinion, I think PEMF probably has the greatest potential to normalize it. So those people who have My Health devices, and there's a couple of us on here, if you know the history behind My Health, that mastermind behind it, God rest his soul, had created that device to be a master reset, so that if there were different insults into our energetic fields, that we would be able to take our physiology back to a normal. He used a combination of microcurrent, although I don't really want to call it micro because it's pretty macro, and PEMF. And so there really was that intention, and I do think that there is a lot of benefit for that. Do we need to run our microsport at a higher intensity when using the converter? Yeah, I think initially when they launched the device, they were saying to put it at 200. Marcus has told me that no, our devices are defaulted at 100. I think 100 is the lowest level they recommend, but it does not sound like there's any. It doesn't increase the Gauss by increasing the current in the microsport. So there is not that need to do that. Microsport programs are mostly all set at 100, and that is fine. So you can just leave it at that. Yep. See, I knew there had to be some questions. Let me see if I get any more of these. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
I have
Yep.
one more. Phil was going for physical therapy for his Achilles tendon, but also going to a chiropractor for the hip. But I'm not sure that he really needs either of those until we get that hip worked out. You want to do something when you need to, but there's no sense
Sure.
in doing something that's going to injure it or make it worse too.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yep. Oh, have you used the converter with your concussion programs? I have not yet. I am waiting for someone to do that. And mostly because I don't think I've had an actual acute concussion case in my clinic for a while, which is interesting. So it would be very interesting, both for acute as well as for chronic. So it will be interesting to me because I have seen those adverse reactions with beamers. And I think what it is I think the magnetic field. So I should say, with I think what's going on with the beamer reaction was that beamers really focus their frequencies on circulation. And if you've had a major concussion or head injury, circulation has been altered in the brain. And so I believe that is why I think there's too much energy with PEMF, where you tend to get pain or adverse reaction, is where the system can't flow the energy through. That's why I bought a biomat so I could ground it out when I accidentally overtreated people. And so and it works. It physically works because you're actually physically grounding that energy out. It'll be interesting to see because we won't be using straight circulation frequencies. We would be using the frequencies that are in the concussion program. So that would be pretty fascinating, Andy. I'm actually excited to see what people see. Are the magnets compatible with our microcurrent machines, or need to buy the magnets with the new equipment? So the magnetic converters, I think I'm answering this right, Marnie, work with your HoweRT Microsport. They will, total transparency, they will also work with MEND type units or other Inspiristar ISO LCDs, right? So you do not need to buy another Microsport to go with the converter. You would just buy the magnetic converter and use your microcurrent. Now, if you want to get fancy like me, where you're running a Microsport in FSM mode and a Microsport in magnetic mode, then you just have to have lots of units like me and Andy, right, Andy? So yeah. So no, you do not have to buy a new device. They will work with the current machines. So there's a reason we tried to make the colors go together. Yep. So not bad, huh? I did pretty good. All right. Any other questions? Let's see what the time is. 9:06. We did pretty good. I had it down there. If using two units, run the same program with magnet and magnet micro. Typically, yes. But there are times where I will choose, like with my kiddo with the leg, I would run like night sprains, um, or a high ankle sprain on the joint area, because it hits all of those like ligaments, tendon, muscle, nerve, all those injured areas. And I ran hematoma on the PEMF because it's more fascial field. So it worked really well that way. So if I run something different, it's usually I'm running something like fascia healing, or something that's more fascial based, like a bruise in there. But typically, I would say 90% of the time we're running the same program. And we did have we had a similar case where we had a girl with bad cartilage, and she was just really persistent. She was not responding to just the microcurrent. So we ended up trying a trifecta treatment with her as a trial, and it worked. And so I think it was just all the extra energy that it had having both. But there's a program we have called Sievers. It's for Sievers disease, which is growth plate defects. And we would run that on the PEMF and on a microcurrent on one knee and on another microcurrent on the other knee. And that's what it took to actually get that to go. But we got it to go. And she had been really persistent. Her mom and dad were very frustrated with her because she just was like, nothing works. She's 16, 17, nothing. But as soon as we started doing the trifecta treatments, she was blogging, and she was like, I said, what are you doing? She said, I've got my own e-blog and I'm blogging and I'm taking pictures. And so clearly we kind of hit the nerve. So she really got it, and she got super excited, and she did really well. How do your clients respond to your stress programs with the converter? Very well. Very well. In fact, one of the first times I did this was I don't want to call it this. It was a stress program. It was nervous system reset, but I was not using it for stress per se. Which was an incredibly difficult patient that we've had. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, this unfortunate little girl, I say little girl, she's in her 20s, had viral encephalitis and viral meningitis at the same time. It's the only case I've ever seen like that. Craniosacral was really the only thing that really ever didn't send her reeling. But we weren't getting progress, right? So we were just helping her. I don't want to say we weren't helping her. We were helping her reduce her amount of O2 that she would need added in. She'd have these mild increases for about a half a day where she could actually spend time with her family and interact. I mean, so her functional level was so low that I didn't feel like we were actually making really big functional gains. And so I told her, I said, you know what, why don't we try when we would run nervous system reset on her on the microcurrent, she'd feel kind of like anxious and like all the time. And then she'd kind of feel like spent. And I said, you know what? Why don't we try it through the magnetic converter? This was literally the first week we got it. She had that extra energy. So remember when I said who needs extra energy? That was her. She needed extra energy in her nervous system. And she had that. She said she felt good for like 2 or 3 days. Increased energy, better outlook, better affect. She smiled. In fact, when she walked out the first time, my office manager, Misty, was like, wow, who was that? Because she goes, that's the first time I've seen her smile. I mean, this girl had been a patient for like a year. So it was just really shocking. So do the magnets have a strong positive effect with people with viral overload or fever? Have not tried it yet. So we'll have to see. I have not been in that situation, fortunately. So we've stayed COVID clear in my family, at least in my house, not my family, but yeah. So it not had any opportunity to use that, but it would be pretty interesting to see. So yeah, I think some of these things are going to be a learning process for all of us. Obviously there's a lot of potential with this technology. It is exciting that we can. I wish we could run them like automatically at the same time. And I am in conversation with this company about whether or not we can try to do something like that. My first goal would be to do it in a way where we just take the microsports that are already out there and build something that attaches to it that allows us to do everything simultaneously. And so those conversations have started, and we'll see if we can get them to go forward. And what that would look like. Because I think that would be the best if we can build off of what we have. I have NFL teams who want it. And so typically manufacturers are always more willing to listen to you when they know you have some high level players that are willing to do that. So I think with that, let me see, we're probably about running out of our time. Any other quick questions before we sign off? I want to thank everybody for coming, especially those who came a second time. I hope it was as entertaining the second time as it was the first. I did not mess around with the recording, so it says that it's still recording. so, so I did not even have Misty here to help me and watch my back, but I managed to do it just fine. Thank you, Marnie. So with all that, I think I will say goodnight. As I would normally say, email me if you have any questions, but if you do, use that director at csifmi.com. So it's just, I'm not very creative in my emails, just like my program names, right? So it's just that's my CSI of MI is my clinic. That's Craniosacral Institute of Michigan. That's what that stands for. We do not do crime scene investigation. But it does make for a snappy little web acronym. So, all right, with that, I hope if everybody has a great evening, and I want to thank everybody for signing in. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know. Like I said, we will take orders at the discounted price until Thursday. And then we are looking to ship early next week. So hopefully we'll have your guys's by this time next week. My goal is to have these units in your hands. And then we'll have to do some more webinars and have some fun talking about all of our experiences. Our next webinar I will actually launch. I had wanted to do it earlier. It will be on supporting Povid. Even though we don't have as many course cases popping up, we still will have some coming around. And I am starting to already get some of the vaccine reactions. And so I will kind of share for those who have had, I had one walk through my practice. She actually was a patient that was a hands-on session. I was not prepared for it. I didn't have a program for it. It just showed up on my table. So I thought, well, I wonder what will happen if we run just the cold virus test through the area, because it has the frequencies for coronavirus. And so that's exactly what I did. I just used sticky pads above and below the injection site. She said it significantly helped the pain. So she said she had pain, and then she also had tingling down the arm, and that part, the tingling was still there. She said that it resolved with a couple days after that, but the pain was significantly helped after that. So that's something that's on everybody's programs. Those of you who have the vaccine reaction as an add-on, that would be my first go-to, the vaccine toxin program, and we'll see if we need to go anything beyond that. I always hope and pray that it's the standard stuff and the easy stuff that's already out there that will work. It worked for CBC, so let's hope there's something else on there that can help with that. So with that, I will sign off. If there's anybody that would like anything, certainly reach out to us. Our phone number also will still work. Just know also that if you could post a voicemail, hopefully I'll be back up by noon tomorrow. So I can't imagine it'll take much longer than that. So thank you all for sharing tonight. Thank you guys for your patience with regards to our crazy emails. And I am looking forward to hearing lots of fun stories about magnetic converters in your practices and in your lives. So have a great night, guys. Thanks for coming.